It's unfair to you. You're going to sit there, you're going to get used, abused, pushed aside, and then you're going to be like, welcome to the gloire space, where we identify that glory is our birthplace and we choose to live our lives with absolute grace. Ever feel like life is one mind game after another? People around you, people at work, the media, politicians, celebrities, even your own mind playing games with you all the time. Can you even go through life without playing these mind games? If everyone around you is playing them, hey, is it avoidable? And if so, can you play those mind games without losing your own integrity? Some people believe that they can rise above mind games. They think that, hey, if I'm just kind, good intentioned, good natured, honest, then people will treat me the same way. And this sounds appealing because you think, hey, if I'm being nice to you, why aren't you going to be nice to me? If I'm being kind to you, if I'm being honest, if I say the truth, why don't you say the truth as well? It sounds appealing. It sounds like, yeah, that's logic. But unfortunately for that, life doesn't work like that. The world doesn't work like that. You can be the honest, most honest person. People will use that honesty against you. The way the world works, look at business negotiations, politicians, look at the way power plays in the world are. It doesn't rely on, I'm being nice to you, why don't you be nice back to me? Does it work like that? What's that saying, nice guys finish last? People who have this kind of approach, unfortunately for you, you're going to get taken advantage of. I'm sorry to tell you that there's no way around it. When people put manipulation games on, when you're avoiding confrontation because you think, I'm being kind, I'm being nice, you're always bringing situations down, you're going to get taken advantage of. I have no other way to put this. You're assuming people are not going to be dirty. I told you exactly how I feel. Why are you doing this to me? It sounds good on paper, but a guy I used to work with, he has this kind of approach, and he's a much older gentleman right now. A few times, we sat together and he's never applied for any kind of raise at all. And he puts in so much work. I'm telling you, this guy works. He is the guy that if they open on Saturday, he's going to be there Saturday. If they, even in lockdown, when we had lockdown here, he was at work. Just to give you an idea. He has no position of responsibility at all, no promotions. Whereas other people who don't work as hard as him, but they make more noise, they get more into the drama, hey, those guys are now his bosses. And they started 10, 15 years after him. Figure. Instead, you need to be aware that manipulation is happening. You need to be aware of it. You need to be in a situation where you're like, okay, cool, this person is using, we'll talk about those in a moment, but this person is using this strategy on me. I need to be aware of it because you don't want to get played. You don't want to get taken advantage of. You don't want to miss out. It's not fair. This is not about you being ambitious, greedy. It's not about any of this. It's unfair to you. You're going to sit there. You're going to get used, abused, and pushed aside. And then you're going to be like, why? I'm not saying lose your good nature. I'm not saying be manipulative, but you need to be aware. If you're in a situation, you should know this person right now is using this. This person's manipulating me, and I know it. You don't have to address it at that point, but you should be aware of the game because these manipulation tactics don't happen like the 1980s movies where the bad guy is so bad. He's using manipulation tactics out loud. He's like, I'm here to destroy the earth. It doesn't work like that. In reality, these things are so subtle on the go that you don't have time to address them. But you've been used. You look at it, this person has just made me put in all that work, and in the end, they took advantage of it. And because I'm being kind and nice, and I say nothing, I'm pushed aside. Instead, the workload gets higher on me. The pressure is put more on me. It's not fair to you. And this is important for our mindset shift to happen, you need to look at it and say, man, it's not fair. This is unfair for me. I am worth more than this. So I don't recommend the idealist approach, this approach that I'm not going to play any mind games. And remember, we're not saying let's be manipulative, let's be all tactful and greedy. We're not saying that. We're saying let's be aware. When the game is being played on me, I'm aware. I know, okay, right now this person is trying to get my sympathy to work. This person, and I'm aware of it. So if you're always assuming the best in others, when you see their red flags, you let them go. And then that person ends up emotionally manipulating you. And once you're emotionally manipulated, you're hooked. You find yourself being dragged into a loop of one problem after the next. You might even fall into some guilt. You'll be like, oh, if I say no to this, they'll think I'm selfish. If I say no to this, they'll think that I don't like them. And then you fall into this people-pleasing thing. So let's see it for what it is. The world is not built on fairness, and it's not built on honesty alone. If you don't recognize mind games, you're not avoiding them, you're just being blind to them. Most times you're getting played and you don't even know it. You know what? Sometimes the people that are playing you don't even know that they're playing you. This is where it gets very complex, because some of these things are learned behaviors. So someone could be playing you, but that's just the way that they behave. And they're not even aware that I'm not playing them. I'm not doing this. They're not even aware of their situation. That's where it gets very complex. You usually wake up to it a little bit too late. You're already in a little bit deep and you're emotionally consumed by that time. Some people use different emotional tactics to get what they want. They might use guilt tripping, love bombing, or even the silent treatment. They don't argue fairly. They distort reality, making you doubt your own self. We call that gaslighting. Another common one is they build emotional dependency. They go from being there, and then disappearing. Hot and cold, hot and cold. And you're left in the middle. You're hot, everything's great. Then it's cold, you don't even know why. These are ways that you get manipulated. Whether these people are using these tactics with intention or without intention, just their learned behaviors, if you don't recognize these patterns, you're going to get dragged into a situation where you're being manipulated. You will start thinking, am I just overreacting? You might even justify their behaviors. You might even start blaming yourself for things that aren't your fault. And instead of setting boundaries, you keep thinking, if I give them more, that'll fix things. And the reality is, if someone knows how to get you in your emotional state, they can control you. So you don't have to manipulate others, but you need to recognize when someone's trying to manipulate you. Think of it like you going to learn how to fight. You go to a martial arts club and you learn to fight. You don't learn to fight because you want to go be a bully. You learn to fight because you need to know what can be used against me and how can I defend it. Mind games come in many forms, but they all have the same goal: to manipulate your thoughts, actions, and emotions. You confront someone for something nasty they've said or hurtful, and then they said, I didn't say that, you're imagining things. Or, you're too sensitive, that's not what happened. Even though you know what happened, you start questioning yourself. You start feeling confused, guilty for even raising it up. And when someone makes you doubt how you've seen things, they gain control over your perceptions. This is called gaslighting. A family member says, after all I've done for you, you won't do this for me. A partner says, if you really loved me, you would do this for me. A boss at work says, oh, I thought you were a team player. I guess I was wrong. In these scenarios, the person trying to manipulate you uses your kindness, your duties, to use them against you and instill guilt. This is called guilt tripping. So you start saying yes out of guilt rather than making decisions that are right for you. You've just had a disagreement with somebody, and then you go on to the next question. You think it's over, and they don't reply. Are you okay? Yep. What's up? Nothing. This one is called the silent treatment. So you start walking on eggshells because you don't want to be ignored. You meet a guy, he takes you out, buys you flowers, says beautiful words. You're the most amazing girl I've ever met. Then goes quiet, ignores your texts, or doesn't respond promptly anymore. You start feeling like, what's wrong with me? And you get attached, trying to get their validation. And you ask, is everything okay? You're too clingy. So this time around, the manipulator uses attention, affection, compliments. And then once you're hooked, they remove it. Why? Because now you're seeking these things again. You're seeking their approval. And once you're seeking their approval, they have control over you. This time, you were love bombed. You tell a friend that something they did hurt your feelings or hurt you. And their reply is, oh, so I'm the bad person now. I guess I never get anything right. Or your partner cheats and says, if you had given me more attention, this wouldn't have happened. In these scenarios, the manipulator flips the script and turns themselves into the victim. They don't take responsibilities for their actions. They make you feel bad that you called them out, even though they're in the wrong. So here you start feeling guilty for things that you haven't done, and you even apologize for standing up for yourself. This manipulation is called playing the victim. You don't understand the bigger picture. There's so many factors at play. It's more complex than you're thinking. Here the manipulator makes things unnecessarily complicated, because then you start feeling lost, unsure, and even dependent. They use vague answers, contradict themselves, or overwhelm you with very complex explanations. What happens here is you start feeling mentally exhausted and you start second guessing everything, so you just let them take control. This is called deliberate confusion. So how do we play the game while remaining authentic? You don't want to lose your integrity and your good nature just because you're hurt by people. You don't want to lose it as a reaction. You know, the old super villain. I was so nice, so naive, and then you made me evil. We don't want to get into that, because then that becomes destructive to you. So we want to understand manipulation in order to stand strong, in order to see games as they're being played, in order to remain unbreakable. First thing, awareness is key. The moment you see it for what it is, it loses power over you. And awareness allows you to respond, not to react. When you react, your emotions get involved. When you respond, you're in control. So how do we use awareness? Let's take for consideration somebody who is using guilt on you. You're having a talk, and then they want something, and you know you can't do this thing right now. Like, I don't have the means, don't have the resources, or I don't have the time. And then they push in one of those sentences. Oh, I thought you really liked me. Here, you notice it. Okay, this person is now using an emotional manipulation. They're trying to get me to feel guilt. And then here, this is where you respond. You're either going to give them that thing later on when you can, when it suits you, or you're like, no, you're not getting this thing. Even kids use this tactic on you. You know, when they insist on they want something, you know, and they start crying and making a scene and no one loves me and all these things. And if you give in to it, you've just created a monster. This kid can now know that, hey, if I get them emotional enough, I can get what I want. And it's, you know what, it's actually very important for us to note this point. manipulation doesn't always happen consciously. And that's very important, because I don't want you to be watching this video and go, oh my God, everyone is manipulating me. And then you become like, everyone is out for me. No, 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 no. You have to know that some of these are survival mechanisms that people have figured that they work. So not all of it comes, not all manipulation comes with evil intent. Some of it has become a programming in that person. And you need to just show that person that that's not going to work with me. Delaying response. This is very crucial. Whenever somebody tries to manipulate you in certain ways, they are trying to elicit an emotion out of you. Now, if you allow that instant reaction, you've just been sucked into that game. Instead, take a breath, respond later. You know, I once read a quote somewhere. If somebody swears at you, take a deep breath, tell them, I'm not going to respond now. I'll be back tomorrow to respond. Even though it's a comical situation, but if you think about the lesson in it, it's like, right now, if I'm going to respond to you, it's going to be out of anger, not out of what needs to be done. So first, get rid of the anger and then respond. Don't let yourself be dragged into emotions. If you have to take some time up, a breath, you do that. Something you can repeat in your mind is, their manipulation will only work if I let it. Their manipulation will only work if I get emotional. Remind yourself. That's what you can do in that moment where you pull back. When you control your emotions, you control the situation. Manipulators always test limits. So when you set boundaries and you're firm in them, they know they can't. There's a fence there. They're not going to cross that fence. That fence is electric wire. They touch it, oh, hell's breaking loose. So saying no isn't being mean. It's self-respect. When you say no, don't explain or justify unnecessarily. For example, you say, that doesn't work for me. That's it. Don't give, it doesn't work for me because. The moment you say because, you've given them another string. If somebody tries to guilt trip you, simple. I understand how you feel, but I can't do that. And finally, I need to say this with setting boundaries. Sometimes you physically need to get out of there. If you're in a toxic situation, for example, an abusive relationship, whether it's physical or emotional, you need to get out of there. There's no, this is toxicity. If it's a relationship, you need out. Boundaries make you unshakable. If they can't get close to you, they can't break you. You need to develop your confidence. The more confident you are, the less likely these guys will try to manipulate you. Manipulators, and here, remember, we're saying some manipulators don't mean to manipulate. They've learned this. And I really want to stick by that point, because I don't want you to be thinking everyone who uses these tactics is evil. It's not true. Some people use them because they're weak. But manipulators or manipulation tactics are aimed at people who have self-doubt. And confidence in who you are will repel most mind games from even starting. What things can you do? Firstly, confidence, I would say, begins with your breathing. Focus on your breathing. If you find yourself in a situation and you're breathing a little bit too fast, just calm down. Breathe it in. Improve your posture. Maintain eye contact. And speak with certainty. This is where your tone comes in. Don't over-explain. Keep things simple and clear. If someone tries to put you down, respond with indifference. Okay. Interesting. Here, you're showing them that their word doesn't affect you. If you act unshakable, people will unlikely try to shake you. Use the power of silence. Sometimes these people, when they've pushed you and they're expecting a response and you say nothing, they get shocked. They get surprised. They start filling in extra details because they're uncomfortable with the gap. For example, love bombing, if they're withholding attention to manipulate you, if you figured that out, the best thing to do is just mirror them. Okay, cool. I'll mirror you. You want to do that? You're being clingy now, and watch them actually become clingy. If someone keeps pressuring you, you say, I've already answered that, and you go silent. Remember, when you refuse to react, you hold the power. So you don't need to manipulate to win, but you can't afford to stay naive. Some people have this idea that to thrive, to be successful, I need to manipulate and deceive. And that's not true. Pretending that mind games don't exist, you're just fooling yourself. You're just setting yourself up for being used. Think of it like fighting. You don't need to pick fights, but you should know how to defend yourself. Mind games are real, so what's your choice? Stay blind? Keep getting played? Or learn the game and keep your integrity? What do you think? Can someone truly live without understanding mind games? Is it possible? Do you think the answer to life is just to be completely honest and direct at all times? Or do you think, whether we like it or not, we got to engage in some strategy? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And remember, glory is your birthplace. Don't let mind games take that away from you. Stay sharp, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.